Friedman Fundamentals, Good Intentions Gone Awry. Friedman Fundamentals, Union and Free Market Labor. Friedman Fundamentals, A Case for Free Markets. Is this a criticism? Because this sounds kind of like an endorsement. He did Horrible Bosses and that Jesse Owens movie from like 6 or 7 years ago. You're talking about Jesse Doliman? What is his name again? I should have subscribed to that channel. Hold on. Jesse Dollimore. And then Policy Ed. So is this what type of like slant is this? Is this pro Friedman? This is called A Case for Free Markets. The economic gains of risk taking. What we learned about the 70% tax rates 50 years ago. I have to admit that this channel on its surface looks like a big endorser of Friedman. They're going PragerU levels of representing him now in cartoons. Just wanted to throw that out there. Okay, so you weren't endorsing this channel as good. You were just saying you should take a look at this in terms of its propaganda. I was like confused because I thought you were making a recommendation. Because yeah, this looks on the surface like PragerU levels of propaganda. It's a right-wing think tank organization. Okay, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense because this quality of video looks like think tank, like a think tank product. Seeking to become the foremost source of policy knowledge, wisdom, and insights, we have launched the Policy Ed platform to prepare Americans for engaged citizenship and to equip people to participate constructively in our vibrant society. Yeah, this looks like some neoliberal fucking shit. They don't even have a link to it anywhere, which is kind of interesting. Usually there would be a link to some other website. The fight to defend the free world. The balance of power and persuasion in the world has shifted against the United States and other free and open societies. Anyway, so before you showed up, Andy, I was telling Gus I don't actually have anything planned for today's stream. I don't really have any new research to show, or any progress on the script to show. I was more like just interested in talking to y'all and chatting with y'all and just seeing what how y'all are doing, how things are going. Because yeah, my own progress on my channel is like pretty much grinding to a halt right now, just because of things going on at the place where I live. I'm in the process of like having to file evictions of people who are like behaving badly, and just trying to organize the rest of the members who are like severely demoralized after a year of being quarantined. And it's just having a really adverse effect on my productivity in terms of my channel. For me, the pandemic is going on 16 or 17 months now because I still have not gone back to my job, but I did get news that they're planning to open back up again in like the second week of August. So I think I only have another 6 weeks to wait, hopefully, before I can actually go back to work and I can actually make a paycheck. And I could actually like start saving money again, which would, I think, improve my mental health quite a bit. And it would probably spur my productivity on my channel again. Because right now I've been locked down for so long that I'm really starting to hate the place that I live in, which is really affecting my concentration. And I'm having to do so much work just to mobilize the community here, because they're very fractured at the moment. And it doesn't help that we have these members that we took on in the middle of the pandemic who ended up behaving really badly, and now they're getting evicted. and I have to make sure that their evictions go through, because otherwise we're just going to have these random people squatting here forever. Things should be fully open in NYC in September. Yeah, I think that by the end of August or September, things will be almost back to normal for me personally. Like, if I can go back to my job and start making a paycheck, I think that will be like the real end of the pandemic for me. Because yeah, the the fact that I'm skating by basically on Patreon money is, you know, it's fantastic that I even have this resource at all, but it's also kind of scary. Like, if you look at this number right here, yeah. So if you see this number right here, this is everything that I make right now. Like, this number is everything that I've made every month for like the past 8 or 9 months. I have not received any unemployment benefits this entire time. This is all I'm working with right now, and I'm basically just surviving on my savings. Um, so yeah, it's been kind of stressful, uh, but I believe that once I'm actually able to go back to work and actually start making a paycheck again, I will feel a lot better about the situation, which will actually enhance my productivity. I was reading up something regarding business and the law and found an interesting piece on Robert Bork. Essentially, he stated that monopolies are good so long as prices stay low. Yeah, Robert Bork is a product of Chicago law. He was a student of Aaron Director, if I'm not mistaken. So if we go to Wikipedia, okay, it says see also Aaron Director, and he's the first reference. I believe that he was a student of Aaron Director. Um, and look at his writings, The Antitrust Paradox. Just the name of this publication is kind of a tip about his position. I always figured this was a big boost to neoliberalism and other right-wing fundamentalists. Yeah, I think your instinct is correct. I mean, this guy was a product of Chicago law. Yeah, University of Chicago Law School alumni. While in law school, he served on the University of Chicago Law Review. Bork is known by American conservatives for his theory that the best way to reconcile the role of the judiciary in the U.S. government against what he terms the Madisonian or the counter-majoritarian dilemma of the judiciary making law without popular approval is for constitutional adjudication to be guided by the framers' original understanding of the United States Constitution, reiterating that it is the court's task to adjudicate and not to legislate from the bench. He advocated that judges exercise restraint in deciding cases, emphasizing the role of the courts is to frame neutral principles. Bork once said, "The truth is that the judge who looks outside the Constitution always looks inside himself and nowhere else." So yeah, I have never dug into this guy before, but I'm pretty sure he's an offspring of the neoliberals. Um, and if you think about what this theory is that he's suggesting, he's saying that he's against the Madisonian or counter-majoritarian dilemma. I don't know what that means, to be honest, but when he says guided by the framers' original understanding of the United States Constitution, I mean, the US Constitution is inherently a minoritarian document. It's meant to elevate the power of wealthy landowners, right? It's a very regressive document in many ways. So, you know, asserting that we have to go back into the minds of the framers of the United States Constitution whenever we make decisions is like, yeah, you want to follow the logic of these 17th century dudes? Like, why? Bork built on the influential critiques of the Warren Court, authored by Alexander Bickel, who criticized the Supreme Court under Earl Warren. At Yale, he was best known for writing The Antitrust Paradox, a book in which he argued that consumers often benefited from corporate mergers, and that many then current readings of the antitrust laws were economically irrational and hurt consumers. He posited that the primary focus of antitrust laws should be on consumer welfare rather than ensuring competition, as fostering competition of companies within an industry has a natural built-in tendency to allow and even help many poorly run companies with methodologies and practices that are both inefficient and expensive to continue in business simply for the sake of competition. to the detriment of both consumers and society. Bork's writing on antitrust law, with those of Richard Posner and other law and economic and Chicago school thinkers, were influential in causing a shift in the Supreme Court's approach to antitrust laws since the 1970s. I mean, dude, this is like dovetailing with neoliberalism perfectly, right? Because the 1970s is when the neoliberals basically broke through, right? And Richard Posner, I believe, is also a Chicago schooler with ties to the neoliberals. Is Aaron Director's name in here? Yeah, in Posner's youth, in reaction to some of the perceived excesses of the 1960s, Posner developed a strongly conservative bent. He encountered Chicago school economists Aaron Director and George Stigler while a professor at Stanford. Today, although generally viewed as to the right in academia, Posner's pragmatism, his qualified moral relativism and moral skepticism, and his affection for the thought of Friedrich Nietzsche set him apart from most American conservatives. I mean, this guy was in the circle of Aaron Director and George Stigler, which is like, yeah, those are like some prime neoliberals right there. Along with Robert Bork, Posner helped shape the antitrust policy changes of the 1970s through his idea that the 1960s antitrust laws were in fact making prices higher for the consumer rather than lower, while he viewed lower prices as the essential end goal of antitrust policy. Is this not insane? Is the point of antitrust policy not to prevent enormous concentrations of wealth and power? Since when did the point of antitrust policy become lower prices? Like, what? That's not what antitrust is about. Antitrust is about reducing concentrations of wealth and power. This is why this is neoliberal fucking bullshit, because they like assert that they're looking out for consumers, right? They're trying to take a pro-consumer stance. But if they were really taking a pro-consumer stance, they would enforce antitrust laws and prevent these concentrations of wealth and power from occurring. Lower prices in service to like allowing as many corporate mergers to occur as possible is not pro-consumer, right? Oh, we have lower prices, but 6 corporations run everything. Is that pro-consumer? These guys are fucking dumbasses. Posner and Bork's theories on antitrust evolved into the prevailing view in academia and at the Justice Department in the George H.W. Bush administration. They have remained consensus view in both the Justice Department and among legal academics of antitrust. Yeah, this is so dumb. These two guys actually are two dudes that probably deserve a mention in the neoliberalism series, but I'm not sure how to possibly fit them in, maybe as like offsprings of the neoliberals. Interpreting antitrust the way that Robert Bork and Richard Posner interpret antitrust leads to the destruction of competition, ironically. Because when you allow these mega corporations to consolidate as much wealth and power as possible, they just like gobble up their competitors. They don't need to compete against them, they just buy them. But yeah, I'm hoping that maybe like 6 weeks from now, I will be able to go back to my job, and that will improve my mood significantly, because I'll be able to get a paycheck again. I will be able to spend my days somewhere other than at my apartment, which would be a great improvement. It really doesn't help me at all that I'm constantly stuck here. And if you're just thinking to yourself, like, why don't you just go somewhere else? It's because I have no money, right? And going places costs money, costs gas and stuff like that. And like I said, I've been surviving on like the tips that I get on Patreon for like 8 months now. So there's not a whole lot of money to go around. But I think once I'm able to go back to my job, things will pick up again. I'm just sort of like waiting patiently and biding my time, and hoping all my patrons don't jump ship in the meantime. 'Cause yeah, my progress is kind of stalled at the moment. And unfortunately, I have to devote a lot of my time and attention to the community that I live in, because it's a bit more higher stakes than this YouTube stuff, right? Like, we have a bunch of people here who are like refusing to move out despite the fact that they've been served notices to vacate. They're taking up rooms that could be occupied by other more reliable people who are trying to move in. And there's a huge bottleneck of people who are trying to move in here, but who can't because these people are taking up the rooms instead of just moving out. Have you guys seen this timeline that I made? I can send you the link if you want it. It's been a while since I've touched this, but it's still pretty detailed. All these blue labels here, this is all stuff that I'm trying to fit into the next episode, which I hope will come out this year. I think that I'll be able to do it this year. I'm just kind of waiting out the summer to see if I can go back to my job, because my ability to concentrate on this political stuff is at an all-time low, as unfortunate as that is. Chile just voted on a new constitution, and Peru will be having a left-winger for president. That's interesting. Is there like an article that you could point me to read more about that? Because I think I saw something about it, but I never dug deeper into it. A series of massive demonstrations and severe riots originating in Santiago. Civil protests took place throughout Chile in response to the rise in the Santiago Metro's subway fare, the increased corruption, cost of living, privatization, and inequality prevalent in the country. Bad Empanada has some stuff on Peru, so does Kyle Kalinsky. Yeah, I actually became a patron of Bad Empanada. But yeah, I actually decided to become a patron of his because I was hoping that I could actually get in contact with him. And then what happened was kind of ironic. As soon as I became a patron of his, there was this message that popped up on screen that said, "Don't try to contact me personally." And I was like, "Oh shit!" Well, that kind of shuts down that whole avenue. Include the Cyber Sin story. What is the Cyber Sin story? I don't know what that is. Cyber Sin was a computer science project used by Allende. Oh, is that supposed to be like his economic planning program? Because I think I read something about this where Allende was planning on using a centrally planned economy like with computers. Is that what that refers to? Oh, it's Cyber Sin with a Y. Allende also undertook the Project CyberSyn, a distributed decision support system for decentralized economic planning, developed by British cybernetics expert Stafford Beer. Based on the experimental viable system model and the neural network approach to organizational design, the project consisted of 4 modules: a network of telex machines in all state-run enterprises that would transmit and receive information with the government in Santiago. Information from the field would be fed into statistical modeling software that would monitor production indicators such as raw material supplies or high rates of worker absenteeism in almost real time, alerting the workers in the first case and in abnormal situations if those parameters fell outside acceptable ranges by a very large degree, also the central government. The information would also be input into an economic simulation software, which featured a Bayesian filtering and control setting that the government could use to forecast the possible outcome of economic decisions. Finally, a sophisticated operations room would provide a space where managers could see relevant economic data, formulate feasible responses to emergencies, and transmit advice and directives to enterprises and factories in alarm situations by using the telex network. In conjunction with the system, the CyberSyn development team also planned the so-called CyberFolk device system, a closed television circuit connected to an interactive apparatus that would enable the citizenry to actively participate in economic and political decision-making. Yeah, this was like so futuristic, especially in 1973, or whenever this was developed. This was like maybe the most sophisticated attempt at economic planning that had been undertaken. And so it makes sense that they made sure to depose of this guy and install Pinochet instead. They were very afraid of this. The episode that I'm working on now is about the neoliberal, basically their like outreach offensive in terms of like think tanks and the Nobel Prize and stuff like that, and the way that they sort of like became a major force in philosophical thought. But the episode following that I plan to be about Chile and about the Chile coup. So I think this would definitely receive a mention because, like, yeah, this type of a sophisticated approach to planning is like exactly what the neoliberals were afraid of. They were afraid that something like this would be attempted, and that it would actually be successful. Yeah, this guy was such a fascinating figure. He didn't really deserve the fate that he got, in my opinion. By the way, did you guys see my most recent comments? Oh, this is a new one. That was only 17 minutes ago. Okay, I don't know what this guy is talking about, but these two comments down here I thought were funny. Yeah, my channel has kind of been at a standstill. It's almost like been perfectly frozen at this 9,600 subscribers mark for like the last couple months. I'm like so close to hitting 10,000 subscribers, but it's like stuck at this number right here. Which makes sense because I mean, my content has not been that eye-opening recently. I'm trying something new with this whole streaming thing. I've got 167 pages done on my graphic novel on fascism. Jesus, dude, you never told us that you were working on a graphic novel on fascism, let alone that it's got 167 pages. Damn, dude, that's fucking major. It's a working idea I started 2.5 years ago and never stopped. I mean, dude, I'm surprised that this is the first that I'm hearing about it. You know, considering how long you've been a subscriber to my channel, that's like a major undertaking, and it sounds like it's coming along quite briskly if you've got 167 pages. Have you literally illustrated 167 pages? It is a graphic novel, right? Are you like a visual artist? I mean, if you got the chops to write 167 pages with illustrations, you should be working for me. I need illustrations. I hope you get to publish it soon. Yeah, I hope Gus gets to publish it soon too. I always thought it would be cool if I could do what some of these other channels do and actually have my own visuals and graphics so that I wouldn't have to rely on like just scouring the internet for random footage to use in my videos, which can be interesting by itself, but it's really a pain in the ass in terms of the amount of hours you have to spend looking for stuff. Like all the times where, you know, if you watch my videos and you go to like, I don't know, this one for example, and you see all these you see all this footage of like World War II era shit. You know, this is all like shit that I had to go find, right? Somewhere else, right? And it's like when you got to go out and actually look for footage like this that actually matches what it is you're talking about, that shit can take a long time, dude. No, I just write. I'm getting someone else to do artwork. Oh, okay. That makes sense. Because I was about to say, dude, if you've written and illustrated 167 pages, like you got some serious bona fides there. Well, History Matters uses a basic graphic program since he can't draw. Is that another YouTube channel? So you're talking about the way this guy makes graphics. Oh yeah, this is pretty basic. I don't know if I would settle for something like this, but apparently it's very successful for him or her. They look like Fisher-Price little people. Yeah. See, I mean, this type of thing might actually make for interesting content on neoliberalism, but it's a little bit too lighthearted for me. I don't know why I insist on everything being so serious, but like this just doesn't vibe with me at all. Although I'm not saying that it's not successful. It's clearly successful. Trying to organize a statewide chapter of people who monitor local news for bias and propaganda to try to counteract it on social media. It's still early, but it seems to be starting to come together. Hey, Cameron, that sounds wonderful. That sounds like an awesome endeavor to undertake. That's great work, man. Good job. Yeah, we were just talking earlier. Apparently Gus is working on a graphic novel on fascism of some sort, which none of us knew about until now. And I think that's super impressive too. Democratic Marxist 01 uses stock footage and he gets good traffic. Yeah, I know. His videos resemble mine in quite a few ways, right? Which I appreciate because I know that the found footage strategy can work. It's just a lot of fucking work to track down all that found footage, you know? That's why I've always thought it would be cool if I could have someone who just goes out and does the visual aspect of the videos for me, because I would really like to just focus on the script itself, you know? The script is already really hard, and then once you're done with the script, you have to actually assemble the visual portion of it, which is like, holy shit, that's a lot of work for one person. I mean, I've been doing it, but it's not easy. And, you know, every time you see a video of someone who does it that way, you should appreciate it because it's not easy. Of course, if, you know, they have a team of people working behind them, it's not as surprising, but it is surprising when it's one person doing all of that. It's definitely not easy. But yeah, Cameron, before you got here, I was explaining that like I don't really have anything planned for this stream in particular. I was just wanting to check in with y'all and see how y'all were doing because I haven't had an opportunity to even make any progress on any of my YouTube content. I'm too busy handling crises that are occurring in the co-op that I live. There are members who need evicting, and new members who are trying to get in, but who I cannot offer any vacancies because we have these people who are like occupying the units that shouldn't be here. So that is a little bit higher stakes than this YouTube stuff. So that's what I'm focusing on at the moment. And also, I think there's only about 6 more weeks to go before I get to go back to my job, which I think is really going to improve my mental health because I'll be able to collect a paycheck again. And also I will be able to spend my days somewhere other than my apartment, which is becoming a huge problem. Like I can't concentrate just because I spend so many days here, and I don't even really want to be at home anymore. And you know, all my most important work is done right here at this computer, right? But I don't even like being here anymore just because I've spent the majority of the last 17 months in this room. So I could really just use a break from my life in general. Like maybe I'll go on vacation once I actually save enough money from my job. I think I will be able to go back on like the second week of August, hopefully. And I think my productivity on the channel will improve at that point because, like I said, I will be able to make some money again. I will be able to spend my days somewhere other than my room. And hopefully by then we'll actually like have resolved the whole eviction crisis going on here. And just to be clear, the people who are getting evicted from my co-op deserve to be evicted. They've been behaving extremely badly, and it's not because of non-payment, right? Some of them have not been paying, but the reason why they got terminated is because they were behaving really badly to other members who live here. So it's not like, you know, we're contributing to the COVID eviction crisis or something. Like these people earned it. They earned their termination. And now they're occupying these rooms that I could be offering to some other really excellent people who could help the community, but I can't because they're occupying these fucking rooms. Could always be worse, could be living under a bridge somewhere. Yeah, you're 100% right about that, Gus. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to live in a place that has living costs that are so low that I could basically make it by with like tips on Patreon, right? I've managed to go 8 months without any unemployment benefits, just living off of Patreon, which is insane considering I only make like $300 a month, right? I'm basically like living on savings and like $300 in income, right? And I've been doing that for 8 months, right? So the fact that I'm not homeless is kind of amazing. And it really has to do with you guys. You know, you guys are the best thing going for me right now, which is why I keep trying to make the effort for y'all to show up. But unfortunately, I just have to handle this crisis that's occurring at the place that I live at the moment. And like my ability to multitask is severely compromised by the fact that I've been quarantined for 17 months and my brain is fried. I'm definitely getting by, you know. I'm not in danger of actually like facing homelessness, but like I don't think there's any other place in the world that I could possibly live where this would be possible, right? There's no other place, especially in the city of Austin, that I could live off of $300 on Patreon, right? Only in this place would this lifestyle be possible. And in that sense, I'm extremely fortunate, right? Because this place that I live in is like a unicorn, you know, even among co-ops, this place is extremely unique. And that's why I'm kind of diverting my energy towards, you know, organizing the community right now and not really on YouTube because, you know, whether this place like succeeds or fails has way higher stakes consequences for me than whether or not I put out some YouTube content, you know? But that's not to say that putting out YouTube content isn't high stakes either. Like the only source of income I'm making is from people who appreciate my content. So it's not low stakes, right? It's very high stakes because if I were to put in the effort, I could possibly increase my income from Patreon. But, you know, that's not going to matter if the place that I'm living in just doesn't function anymore. Hell yeah, I couldn't live in Alaska on $300 a month. You need to go overseas to live just okay on that type of scratch. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. Like, the fact that I'm in the situation that I'm in is just remarkable. I can't ever undersell how amazing it is, right? Even though I feel very stressed oftentimes that I'm not producing content fast enough to justify the amount of support that I'm getting, which, you know, doesn't feel good, but I'm having to balance these responsibilities, right? One responsibility is to my patrons and to my YouTube subscribers, and the other obligation that I'm balancing is to my co-op and the people who live here, right? Because there are a lot of people who are depending on me to like keep the place running, especially because some of the members who have lived here the longest are not really pulling their weight anymore. So someone has to step in and actually organize the community and make sure that, you know, evicting these members who are literally, you know, just being a menace actually happens. I share your content to help people understand neoliberalism. Hey, thanks, Cameron. I appreciate that. I feel like I've established, you know, a decent like catalog for people to enjoy at this point. You know, even though like I haven't produced any sizable content in quite a long time. I mean, this has got to be like hours and hours of fucking content at this point. Like, I can't imagine that someone could discover my channel today and not be satisfied with the amount of stuff that they could consume. So I think the game that I ended up playing the most of over the course of the quarantine is Borderlands 3. I've always been a fan of the Borderlands series, and the third one is really fun. So that game in particular has helped me through the pandemic quite a bit. There are a couple others that I've been playing too. One of them is this game called Hunt Showdown, which is like a hardcore shooter based in like the swamps of Louisiana with all these zombies running around everywhere. That one is super intense and fun. It's really tempting to just spend all day playing video games, especially when things are as stressful as they are, but obviously I can't allow myself to do that just because, like I said, I have obligations to my co-op and obligations to my patrons to, you know, show up and check in every now and then. But it's like, video games are like the perfect antidote to this situation, dude. You know, if you're stuck inside and you're stressed out and you're just waiting on shit to open up again, you know, like I am, I've basically got to wait like another 6 weeks basically for my job to open up again. You know, video games are like the perfect antidote to that. So it's hard to resist. Been playing Cyberpunk 2077 lately. I passed on that game. I feel like I saw that fraud coming from a mile away. Not to pass judgment on your taste in video games or anything, but like I would not buy that game unless it was like $10. Yeah, it ain't bad. A buddy of mine is a huge Fallout guy. Yeah, Fallout is amazing. I love Fallout. The only like Fallout is one of those games that I don't even allow myself to play right now just because I would literally just have no life if I did that. But I played Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas back on the Xbox, like when they first came out. I have a PC now, so I could play an even better version of those games now if I really wanted to. But like I said, I just haven't because I would literally just drop off the face of the earth if I made that decision. I don't play as much raising my kids. Yeah, that's an important balance to achieve. You really don't want to be that guy who like games instead of raising his kids. I can't imagine the pressure. Cyberpunk has a pretty good comic book series from Dark Horse Press. I mean, I don't... If you say so, like, I feel like that whole franchise is just cursed at this point. I think it had the most embarrassing launch of any video game in history, which for me was not particularly hard to predict, right? I took one look at that game and I was like, this is going to flop. But apparently every other person in the world disagreed with me. Game's overrated, but the comic book is good. I think the game is the opposite of underrated. It's like universally panned. Like everyone agrees that that game sucks compared to what it was promising. But I mean, I'm not going to talk shit about anyone who enjoys it, you know, because if you enjoy it, that's really all that matters. I just think that it was obviously so far below what it was promising. I'm enjoying it all right. I want more games with that level of body customization. Big gender euphoria feels. I understand, excuse me, I understand that completely. Because I mean, like, I think the concept of the game was so tantalizing, which is why everyone threw their money at it, right? The problem was that the studio obviously never executed the concept, right? And now, as a result, the entire cyberpunk genre is going to be like a laughingstock forever, right? Cyberpunk is going to be the butt of like every joke that ever gets made about the gaming industry ever again, which is such a shame because, like I said, the concept of that game was so tantalizing. And it's also mega ironic, right? It's like a game about a hyper corporate dystopian future ruined by some hyper corporate, you know, video game studio management. You know, it's just brimming with irony, right? Yeah, I actually have a pretty big Steam library of games, which is kind of ironic considering how many uh, games I don't permit myself to play. Just because if I permitted myself to play them, I would literally like just stop doing the things I need to do. But I sometimes think about whether I should consider streaming games. Um, Not because I don't like doing the politics stuff anymore, but because obviously the gaming stuff would be so much more fun, right? You know, doing this hardcore political research, it's very enlightening and it's very like challenging, but it's not exactly fun, right? And I don't really know how much my patrons would appreciate it if I pivoted over to gaming, considering a lot of them probably support me because they want to see more political content, right? But obviously, like, it's not unheard of for a political YouTuber to actually make gaming content on the side. Like, just look at some of these guys. Fucking Destiny right now is streaming himself playing some fucking D&D or some shit. Everyone wants to get this fucking liberal's take on every little thing that happens, and he spends his stream fucking gaming the whole time. Like, what kind of fucking black magic bullshit is this? You know? Look at this guy. You know, this guy, despite the fact that he actually does talk about politics a lot, streams video games almost every fucking day. You know? I don't know how these guys do it. I don't know how you like manage to mix these like politics and gaming together into one channel. It seems like an advanced form of dark magic to me. Look at this guy, dude. I mean, this guy makes like, you know, 90-minute reviews of video games and then also has videos about vaccines. Like, this is just a level that I don't even know how to get to. I wish I could figure it out. Maybe you should do a We Play gaming stream. We could multiplayer Borderlands 3. The scheduling might be a nightmare. I mean, I would be down, honestly. It just depends how many patrons of mine are also down, right? The problem that I have right now is like, let's look at this. Right now I have 71 active patrons, right? But in every single weekly stream that I have, there's only like 4 of y'all that show up, right? So there's part of me that's like, okay, well, I mean, if I just made the pivot over to gaming, I'm not sure how many of these people would actually stick around. And then there's another part of me that's like, if I pivoted to gaming, why do I care what any of these people think anyways? Because they never show up in my weekly streams anyway. They never bother to provide me any feedback about how I'm running things anyway. You know? It's like, it's just so amazing to me that I have 71 people who are contributing to me every single month, but they never want to make a public post. They never want to make a statement about like what I'm doing or, you know, the massive archive of notes that I've built up. You know, I literally get no feedback about so much shit that I do, which is kind of unnerving to a content creator, right? If you're a content creator, you know this to be true, which is what hurts way more than disapproval is indifference, right? It hurts way more to do something and have it receive absolutely no attention than for someone to come around and say, you know, this fucking sucks, right? You know, if you make something and someone comes and say, this fucking sucks, you know, at least that's like an acknowledgement, right? Someone actually encountered something that you created and acknowledged it, even though the comment was shitty. if you make something, if you put something out into the world and then literally no one acknowledges it, that hurts way more than if someone were to be disapproving of it, right? So when I put something on Patreon or I put something on YouTube and there's 71 active patrons and I only get like, 4 or 5 people in a weekly stream, I'm just like, dude, you're literally giving me your money. Like, you don't want to actually evaluate the job that I'm doing. You don't want to participate in what I'm doing here. I just don't understand sometimes. I'm sorry if this is a very ranty sounding diatribe, but like, it's just something that I've felt for a while. Like, I just don't know how to explain it. On a separate channel, you're not the first person to suggest to me that maybe I should start a second channel that would segregate my gaming content. I just feel like if I did that, I would just obviously gravitate toward the gaming channel and just abandon the political channel because gaming is just so much more fun, right? And balancing two channels that are so wildly different from each other just seems like an extra difficult task to put on myself. But I don't know, maybe you're right. Maybe I should try to like find an outlet, instead of like getting really getting really anxious that I haven't made any progress on my political stuff. Probably because folks have other things to do while also trusting you. I think that you're right about that, Gus, because honestly, one thing I've noticed if I was to look at my list of patrons is one thing that's unique about my patrons is that a lot of them made accounts on Patreon just to support me. Like, oftentimes, a lot of my patrons are people who literally support me and no one else, which is like a really interesting phenomenon, right? Because it makes me feel that like my content reaches people who are not always that tech savvy or internet savvy, and yet I still persuaded them to try and support, which to me is like a great accomplishment. But the problem is that I never get any extended participation from them after, because they obviously enjoy the content enough to support me, but not to participate to the level that you guys are participating. So yeah, I just don't know what to feel about it, because I would really love it if my patrons just spoke up more on my page, right? Even if it was to be disapproving. Like, if someone, made a post on my Patreon and was like, hey, you haven't posted anything in 6 months, you fucking asshole. What is the problem? I would be like, fair enough, dude. Like, thanks for making a post. I would prefer posts that are disapproving over like complete silence. You know what I mean? Because indifference hurts a lot more than disapproval, in my opinion. Hey, welcome Chimchuri, and welcome It's Fair Game. I'm glad to see you all here. I think 6 concurrent viewers is actually kind of like an all-time high for me in terms of a weekly stream. So as I'm bitching about how no one ever tunes into my streams, I'm actually hitting an all-time high, which is kind of funny. But I appreciate that you guys are here. This is very unusual for me to be streaming on a Wednesday. Usually I would do the streams on Sunday, but my sleep schedule was so destroyed earlier that I don't think it would have happened. But I'm glad that you all are here now. We're just speaking about random shit because I honestly had nothing to present today. I had no research. I had no progress on the script. I had nothing, just because I've been spending all my energy like solving crises that are occurring at the place that I live at, including like evicting a bunch of people who shouldn't live here anymore. Making sure that the place that I live function correctly is a bit more higher stakes than producing YouTube content, so that's just where my energy is going at the moment. But I'm just trying to be like as upfront and transparent about that as possible. And I think these weekly streams are a good, venue for me to do that. If shit is really slowing down and grinding to a halt, like, I don't have problems admitting that, because I'm not giving up on this content. I just need a lot of shit to like turn around. I have to wait like another 6 weeks before I can go back to my job, which I think will really be the end of COVID for me. When I can get a paycheck again and when I can actually go somewhere other than my own apartment, I think that my time management skills and my mental health will come back, and it will probably improve my ability to concentrate on this research that I need to do. And also, if I could get these fucking evictions filed and get these parasites out of here, that would really improve my mental health as well. I'm noticing most content consumers just want to consume and don't want to interact. Yeah, I think there's something to be said about that, because like, I often try to put myself in the shoes of people with bigger channels. And then when you look at someone with a bigger channel, like, look at this guy, for instance. Actually, this guy might not be a very good example because his content gets like massive engagement. I don't know. Let's look at this guy, for instance. So Democratic Marxist 01, he's got 16.6K subscribers, right? But if you look at his view counts are all in like the 4 and 3 and 5 range, right? Which means that like a whole 66% of his subscribers are just not even clicking, right? And when you're in that situation, you know, that's just super frustrating. It's like where are the rest of my subscribers, you know? And that's when I get the feeling of like, you know, someone just put me in their gift basket and they're not actually clicking on any of my stuff. They just want to know that I'm in their gift basket and that's it. Our schedules don't match up. Hey, Chimchuri, is Wednesday a better day for you? Because honestly, I'm not opposed to actually changing the day of the weekly stream if it maximizes the amount of people that can actually participate. I mean, I used to do it on Sunday because I made a couple of assumptions. Like I assume that most people that are patrons of mine are like not working on Sundays. You know, they're not scheduled for any job. I assume that they're awake during the day. And I assume that Sundays is a day where they're often going to be like browsing YouTube anyway. And that's why I chose Sunday. But I mean, if those assumptions are incorrect, I'd be happy to change it to a day that works better for the majority of my patrons. I live for your content, I really do. Why? No one else is unpacking this economic system quite in the same way. Hey, thanks, it's fair game. That's a really awesome compliment. I appreciate that. I do notice your comments in the YouTube comment section of my videos quite a bit, so I know that you're supporting me, and I appreciate it. I'm really just trying to figure out what's going on with my patrons specifically, and why they choose not to come to the weekly stream or why they don't ever post anything. You know, even if it's to post something disapproving. Like I'm almost shocked that at this point I haven't had someone post like, you know, it's been a whole fucking 8 months since your last neoliberalism video. Like, what the fuck is the deal? You know, I'm like anticipating that post is going to be made like every single day, and it never comes, which is kind of funny. Sometimes you got to just exist and solve crises. Yeah, I mean, I'm choosing which battles to fight right now, and right now I'm diverting my energy towards the co-op and making sure that the co-op doesn't fail. Because if the co-op fails, then you can be sure that there's no YouTube coming after that. You know, there's not going to be any content being made if I can't live here anymore, right? Which is definitely a fear that I have. Spooky Scary Socialist hasn't posted content in a year and a half, and he's even made fun of himself for it. Well, I'm glad to hear that maybe it's not as rare of a phenomenon as I might feel like. I just have very high standards for myself, so the fact that I've sort of ground to a halt in my own research process is kind of concerning to me. But I mean, I don't think the circumstances could be any more dramatic, right? Like, a lot of people have declared that the pandemic is over, but for me, the pandemic's not going to be over until I get to go back to my job and actually make a fucking paycheck again, right? You know, if we actually count the days since I've been able to actually go back to my job. Here, let's do an exercise real quick. Date-to-date calculator. So if we go all the way back in time to March 15th, 2020 to today, that's 472 days since I've been out of work. Okay? Somehow I've managed to like stay living for 472 days without getting a paycheck. Right? For the first, 8 months of the pandemic, I had unemployment benefits, which was great. But then whenever the state decided, well, actually, we're not going to give you unemployment benefits anymore unless you start doing work searches, I was like, well, fine, I don't want the benefits anymore because I don't want to do these fucking work searches. I already have a job, right? I'm not trying to go work somewhere else before the pandemic's even over, right? There's no vaccines out, but you want to make me go apply for fucking jobs, right, out in public? Like, fuck that. So I just decided I wasn't going to collect the unemployment benefits anymore. So basically, since October of 2020, I've been surviving just off of Patreon, right? Literally, this number that you see here, that's all I make now. That's what I live off of. And I've just been living off of savings, basically, right? So that's very stress inducing to me. That really compromises my ability to concentrate. But, hopefully that will come to an end in like 6 weeks. Would you be interested in doing a video about living in running a co-op? It's something I might like to do, but I have no idea where to start. Hey, Chimchu that's an excellent question. So making YouTube videos about co-ops is something that I've thought of quite a bit because it would really unify two areas of activism that I've been like heavily involved in. And I have mentioned my co-op activism in my live streams briefly in the past, but I just don't know. I don't really know how to go about making content like that just because it would be so radically different from the content that I've been doing. I mean, I think that what you're suggesting is a good one, right? I just have never thought about how to go about it because I feel like at this point, my subscribers are really subscribed to me for a specific reason, which is because they want super high quality video essays, right? But I think if I was to explain how co-ops work, it would be like a very different type of video. It would probably be more like what I'm doing now, which is just talking into a camera. And historically, I've been trying to avoid that as much as possible because I feel like it's very easy to just fill up your channel with like, face talking into a camera videos. And those are very low effort, right? But honestly, like this is just a perfectionist tendency that I have to avoid doing things that are easy. But it might actually be of a great benefit to people, including you, right? Because I feel like I have a lot of co-op experience at this point, and I could probably tell you guys how to do a lot, right? So I don't know, maybe if that's something that y'all are into, I could seriously consider doing something like that because, yeah, co-ops are my bread and butter. I've been living in co-ops for, over 4 years now in Austin. You've got real grown-up stuff you're working on, so you get a pass because you actually deal with real-world stuff and not getting crazy over BS. Hey, well, thanks, Gus. That's a really reassuring attitude to me. I'm glad that you feel that way. Contact Lee Camp for help to get noticed. He is very knowledgeable on neoliberalism contorts the economy. I assume you mean how neoliberalism contorts the economy? He does have a YouTube channel, doesn't he? Oh, redacted tonight. Yeah, I will have to check him out to see maybe if he's receptive to receiving some kind of message. I was saying earlier, I actually became a patron of Bad Empanada on YouTube, and I was doing it with the hopes that maybe I could write him a message. And then as soon as I became a patron of his, there was this message that appeared on screen that was like, do not attempt to personally message me. And I was like, oh shit, well, I guess that plan just went out the window. I still enjoy his content, so I don't regret becoming a patron. It's not a day of the week thing for me, but a time of day. It's actually odd that I'm up for this right now. Oh, I see. So are you like a mega night owl? That's been me for quite a long time, actually. I was, posting on Patreon that I was like routinely falling asleep at 6 a.m. So maybe you and me are not so different. Yeah, I'm only off on Wednesdays. So maybe Wednesdays is a good day. From my experience in sales and advertising, your expectations should be like 2 to 3% response from the whole universe of people who watch or read your content. I think that what you're saying is true, honestly, because like if you were to look at my dashboard and look at my analytics, you can actually see my engagement levels. And one thing that, oh wait, maybe this isn't the right, reach maybe is the right tab. Yeah, so you can see how the number of impressions leads to a 4.1% click-through rate, which honestly I don't think is terrible, right? 4.1% click-through rate is not actually bad, right? It's just that the impressions that YouTube is actually making me, that number is dwindling because I haven't uploaded anything significant in a long time. So, the less impressions that I get, the less that this 4.1% click-through rate is really going to matter, right? So yeah, I don't think that what you're saying is wrong. It's just like, what I find unbelievable is that, I can look at my own channel. I can see there's 9,592 subscribers, but the views on my videos are nowhere near that. So there's literally like 90-something% of my subscribers that just see my videos in the subscription feed and they're like, nah, which is just like, dude, like, why are you even here? I would prefer you just unsubscribe to me than just inflate this number, even though you're literally like not down for what I'm doing. Chimchuri has a point. Housing policy and real estate law can be wedged into the neoliberalism subject greatly. Yeah, I think you're 100% right about that. It's just like I said, I have such a pernicious tendency to be a perfectionist that it's hard for me to scale back the scope of my videos now that I've established such a standard of quality. And this is really my own fault, right? Because if we go back to my first video, right, which was this fascism video, and also the first neoliberalism video, the only reason why these videos are as complicating as they are is because I literally could not even build up the courage to post something unless I felt like it was the most powerful case that I could ever possibly write. Which, I ended up doing it, which was a great success. But at the same time, this was like a enormous standard to establish for myself right out of the gate. And then after I did this, I was like, okay, well, every video needs to be this good or better, because otherwise the audience is going to notice a dip in quality, right? So I committed to just making a series full of like absolutely fucking bonkers complicating videos, because this was like the level that I was operating on. So the idea of me making a video now that's just sort of like simpler and less complex, it's like kind of hard for me to wrap my head around just because I'm such a insane perfectionist. Yeah, I've been interested in that fact. I'm still living with my parents and I want to move out. Well, I'll tell you from personal experience, housing co-ops are like one of the few semblances of affordable housing left in this country. And what makes it even more tough is like a lot of co-ops in the country are specifically for university students. So if you're not a university student, you might not have any co-ops nearby that you can actually move into. The co-op that I live in now is not for students though. It's for people of all ages and all backgrounds and all professions, right? Which is a bit more rare, but it's not exactly impossible to establish one yourself. The problem is that you need some property, right? And property is extremely difficult to acquire right now. The prices of every property in the country is just astronomical, unless you have found some institutional capital that will allow you to actually purchase a property like that and zone it as a co-op and establish a co-op infrastructure for running it, right? And if you really want to learn about that, you should go to this organization. You should look at NASCO. Hold on. Yeah, North American Students of Cooperation. So this organization here, this is like one of the biggest and most powerful co-op organizations in the country, and they have an arm of their organization called NASCO Properties. Anyway, NASCO has this arm of their organization called NASCO Properties, and NASCO Properties is who literally holds the mortgage of the property that I live in, right? So my co-op technically does have a landlord, but the thing is, because the landlord of my co-op is also a co-op, they're never going to tell us what to do, right? They're going to completely relinquish control, and they're going to let us run it however we want to. So it's not accurate to say that we don't have a landlord. It's just the landlord is another co-op. And because the landlord is another co-op, they're never going to tell us what to do. So that's kind of how the actual logistics of it work. And NASCO is a great organization to get involved in, because you can actually see co-ops all over the country, like where they're located. And these are just the ones that are members of NASCO, right? Not every co-op that exists in the world is a member of NASCO. So this is not even the total number of co-ops that exist in the country. TYT Dore is a hot new feud. I feel like that camp is always engulfed in a feud. Is this one like even more serious than normal? Unfortunately and ironically, both of them are dead wrong. TYT was disrespectful to Aaron Mate, and Jimmy threw out personal stuff which is just below the belt. Then Dore admitted to sexual harassment straight out. Admitted to his own sexual harassment? That sounds so weird. I'm aware, but actually Jimmy only brought out the personal stuff because Anna threatened to blackmail him with it, and it's just ridiculous to call what JD said sexual harassment. It sounds like a very nuanced controversy. I don't agree with TYT a lot, but I agree with most of the audience community. I never liked the doesn't do homework Dore, but I never knew he was such a slime. I don't really know what to think about Dore anymore because it seems like his main shtick now is like reserving all of his aggression for the left, which is sort of like the same thing that like Glenn Greenwald and Matt Taibbi do now. It's like, I thought these guys were all leftists, but apparently they only reserve their aggression for the left now. Like, why is that? Dore was right to defend Aaron Mate, but then both made it personal. I would have handled it differently because I was raised differently. Well, I mean, these guys are, big talking head content creators. Bad publicity is still publicity, and as long as people are clicking, they still get their paycheck, which, as cynical as that sounds, might be the case of what's happening here. Not a fan of Jimmy Dore. He just got mad at AOC because she didn't come on his YouTube show. Now he hates her. Yeah, it's like every time I look at Dore's content in my feed, it's like, oh, someone from the squad fucked up, or the Democrats are fucking useless, which I don't exactly disagree with, but it's like, who are you targeting here in terms of your intended audience? It sounds like he's making content for people who just like hate every type of Democrat, whether they're progressive or neoliberal. A lot of people are like that now, especially with Glenn, but I lost respect for him too. He's been siding with Tucker Carlson a lot nowadays. Yeah, I agree. It's like Glenn Greenwald used to be my guy. Like he was like a big role model for me. Like I actually literally met him in person and he signed a book, which is still on that bookshelf over there, right? And I actually came across this excellent article kind of like explaining the situation to me. Wait, hold on. Maybe I have it over here. So there's this article that I found, which was really interesting. It's actually more of a blog post, but it's called Glenn Greenwald, Other Useful Idiots in Cancel Culture. And I'll just post that in there. And then also Nathan Robinson wrote an excellent article in Current Affairs about Greenwald and Taibbi and those guys. Wait, yeah, okay, it's this one. How to End Up Serving the Right. So both of these articles were very informative for me in trying to figure out how Glenn ended up the way that he is now. And even Noam Chomsky, when he was asked about Glenn, he was like, yeah, I just hope it passes, whatever he's going through. I appreciate your dedication to detail on this subject. Hey, thanks, Cameron. I think that a lot of people do appreciate the detail that I go into with this series. It's just like, it's an insane standard of quality to hold yourself to, and I sometimes wonder if I've just like painted myself into a corner by doing it this hard. You can criticize the left, sure, but not side with the conservatives as well, who want things worse for mostly everyone in the country. Yeah, I agree. It's like, I don't automatically view criticism of the left as endorsing the right, but for too many people, it seems like that's exactly what's occurring. There are people out there who literally think that like woke culture is worse than like fascism. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck? How do you end up in this position where you've just built up this huge body of work that points to you having really progressive views, and then you say shit like that? Like, it's just crazy. Chimchuri says AOC does not equal the left. I think that you're making an accurate statement there, but at the same time, AOC is literally like the most progressive, well, maybe not the most progressive, but like in comparison to the average neoliberal Democrat, like she's so light years beyond them, right? And you could make an objective argument that like she's actually not as progressive as she seems, but like compared to these other fucking people like Pelosi and Biden, it's like I'll take an AOC any fucking day of the week, I feel like something that leftists do not like to hear is like, to even move back to the conditions of embedded liberalism would take moving mountains, right? But so many leftists are just so wrapped up in like communism and central planning that they think that this even has like a remote chance of occurring in this country. When it's like, no, dude, the idea that humans actually deserve housing and food and shelter is controversial now. How are you going to make the argument for central planning to people like that, right? We have to be incremental. And I understand that the reputation of incrementalism is ruined now, but it's been ruined by people who were never promising incrementalism in the first place, right? People like Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton refer to themselves as incrementalists, but they only incrementally move us in the direction of wealth consolidation, right? Incrementalism would be a great thing if we were incrementally moving towards social democracy, right? I don't think that you should feel shame in referring yourself as an incrementalist, right? It's just the reputation of that idea has been ruined by neoliberals. He's trying to get the Bernie bros and funnel them to right-leaning views. I mean, I understand that there were some Bernie Sanders people who actually did vote for Trump, but I feel like that must have been blown out of proportion. Like any serious Bernie supporter would have obviously considered that not an option, no matter how much you hate the DNC and the Democratic establishment. I was always skeptical of Greenwald, good reporter, but emotionally unstable and impulsive. Yeah, I think that's a pretty concise summary of him too. So if you read this Nathan Robinson article, he starts off, stating his admiration for these people, because they've clearly done good stuff, but they're on such a weird path now, and it's really just sad to see. You know what I mean? I used to be a Trump supporter, sadly. Wow, I had no idea. Well, I'm not going to hold that against you just because it seems like you've obviously reformed yourself, but that's interesting to know. Responding to Lee Camp, when your next video is ready, he would likely interview you on his Moment of Clarity YouTube show. Well, that would probably be a huge benefit to me if that's true. Because yeah, my subscriber count is pretty stagnant now because my compilations of these streams, they're not, wildly successful. Even though like I'm not really, banking on them being successful, right? The fact that they have such low view counts is not really what bothers me. What bothers me more is that, like, of my 71 patrons, there's still only like a consistent 4 or 5 that ever bother to show up in the streams, right? The fact that these compilations get so few views doesn't matter to me because I'm just trying to prove that I'm still doing something, right? Someone will come along and watch this and enjoy it, and it will prove that I was not doing nothing during this entire period. That's all I really care about. What bothers me more is that these streams are full of the same 4 or 5 people and not 70 plus people, right? That's what bothers me. The problem is that we've only had a few years of actual non-conservative theory and people want the change now. It's a lot like putting a roof on some building which hasn't had a proper foundation. Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because it's like, obviously I don't need to explain this to you because you're a big supporter of mine, but like, it's not a conservative theory that we're trying to recover from. It's a neoliberal theory, right? Conservatism just happened to be the vehicle that neoliberalism chose to infect the political system with. And, the fact that America still clutches this outdated dichotomy between conservative and liberal is why we could never identify that fact, right? If you think that the word liberal is just a synonym for Democrat and conservative is just a synonym for Republican, you're never going to understand the story of neoliberalism, right? It's going to exceed your comprehension because you're not even thinking about these terms correctly, right? It would seem unthinkable to you that a neoliberal could infiltrate a conservative party and make it a neoliberal party, right? You could never even comprehend that could happen because your understanding of these terms is so limited by this dichotomy, right? But of course, you didn't need me to explain that to you. Well, this stream actually went longer than I was expecting. I was kind of thinking that I was going to wrap it up around 3 o'clock just because, like I said, I didn't have any new research to show off or anything like that. But this ended up being quite a lively conversation, which I appreciate. I'm wondering if you guys think that I should keep doing Wednesdays or if you want me to go back to Sundays. Because this was actually quite a lively conversation. And you all seem pretty understanding that I'm sort of just handling shit in life right now, and that kind of prevents me from diverting my energy towards YouTube content. And I'm really grateful for that understanding, because honestly, I'm trying to, give my best effort to check in with y'all and make it apparent that I'm not throwing in the towel. I'm just sort of biding my time until, a better day arrives for me to dive back into this content, because, you know, I'm going through a huge, problem with the place that I live in, and I'm still waiting for my job to reopen. And excuse me, if I could solve both of those problems, I would be like so much more, you know, able to shift gears back into YouTube production. Um, but until that's the case, it's just kind of gonna stay limping along. But yeah, I'm so happy that you all were here today, and just wanting to chat, because that's all I really wanted to do. I wanted to just hear what you guys are doing and how you're feeling, um, and just like, chill. I think it's okay for us to just chill. And honestly, like, I spend a lot of time gaming just to, repair my mental health after all the stupid shit that happens in my day to day. So if any of y'all like that sort of thing, I think maybe that might be an avenue for us to explore. Not necessarily, as a content creation thing, but maybe just for recreation. And yeah, maybe one of you can make a Patreon post about it. Because, if I could have more patrons actually using the public forum to just say shit, that would just brighten my day so much. I'm constantly waiting for the day that people are just using the Patreon as their own forum, right? Instead of just, acting like they need permission from me to say something. You don't need any permission to post something on my Patreon. you know Even if you want to post like, you know why haven't you posted anything? Like, when is this coming? Like, when is this happening? Like, why don't you read a different book? I want to learn something new. Like, even disapproval to me is more preferable than like indifference, right? So, use that forum to say whatever you want. It's your forum. You paid for it. You're paying me money, which means you get to use it like your own personal forum. That's what I would really love to see, is if my patrons were actually speaking to each other and to me way more often. I'm honestly more available during the weekdays. Well, I mean, shit, I might just decide to do it on Wednesdays from now on, if that's, how people really feel. Seems like a lot of people showed up today, so that's really cool. Don't care when you put it, I'll make time for your stream. You're that good. Hey, thanks, Gus. You're a real hero around here. My kids like to do stuff on weekends, which takes me away from the computer regularly. Have you read The Shock Doctrine? It's relevant to neoliberalism. Yeah, the Shock Doctrine was very instrumental in my very first video. So if you, yeah, see, look at the frame that just came up. I think I spoke about this with someone recently, and that's why I looked it up. But yeah, the Shock Doctrine was instrumental to me actually making the very first episode in the series. And you can see it in my recommended list down here in the description. Maybe that's why the book felt familiar. Well, dude, honestly, I'm not even done using this book, because like at some point I want to make an episode about the Pinochet coup in Chile, and she goes into a ton of detail about that. So I wasn't exactly done using her book, because yeah, the way that she breaks down the military dictatorships in favor of neoliberalism is very, very good. I didn't end up getting that far in this particular video, just because this first episode of the series was kind of like a roadmap for the entire series, right? So it was kind of like a summary of where the entire series is heading, and then starting with the second episode, it was going into detail about specific moments in history. So yeah, at some point I want to do an entire episode about the military dictatorship in Chile and how its economic policy was in fact neoliberal and not, just authoritarian. I read my first bio on Keynes called The Price of Peace. I recommend it. I knew very little about the scope of his work. He towers over Hayek in ability. Yeah, you're 100% right about that. Keynes is a fucking god, dude. The only reason why this planet is worth living on is because of Keynes. Like, that might seem like a huge exaggeration, but it's like, his work provided the theoretical justification for government intervention and social democracy on a global scale. And yet, kids in fucking public school never even hear his name. Like, especially compared to Hayek, dude. Keynes is a god. Like, the more that I learn about him, the more that I think he might be the most fascinating figure in history. But anyway, it's approaching 4 o'clock, and typically I would only stream for 2 hours at a time. And yeah, I wasn't actually even expecting this stream to reach 2 hours just because, like I said, I had no original research to present. But I just want to thank everyone for showing up today. It ended up being super fun, just talking about shit that I normally don't talk about. And I hope that you guys will go on the Patreon and use it in any way that you see fit, because you guys are all the momentum behind this Patreon campaign right now. You know, the fact that you're in this chat room right now means that you are the most involved members in this community, and you guys should take control of the community, you know, because that's your right. But thank you for being here. Thank you, Gus, and thank you, Andy. Thank you, Cameron. Thank you, Chimchuri. Thank you, It's Fair Game. It's been real, y'all. I want to do this again next week, and I might actually keep this Wednesday slot just because it seems like it works for more people than the Sunday one. So thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next week. And hopefully, you know, by the middle of August, you know, conditions in my life will improve to the point that I can devote my energy and attention to YouTube again. But until then, I hope that you guys stick with me. And I hope that you all, you know, continue to tune in on a weekly basis, because I'm not giving up. I'm just keeping things moving along as much as I can. But take it easy, y'all. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and I will talk to you all again soon. Peace out.